to the people, which they campaigned on for them to get elected. A few of these things were strengthening the country's economy, the social services in the country, health and education, with particular focus on teachers, good governance, the respect and protection of human rights, respecting conventions and treaties which the country is already a signatory to. Under the democracy and rule of law, the coalition agreed that strengthening the IEC, Ombudsman, and other oversight bodies were a priority, and also to promote the independence of the Gambian judiciary. In the area of human rights and justice, the coalition government agreed to repeal any laws that oppressed human rights and that are in contravention with the best practices in upholding human rights. In particular, because a lot of us are aware of the Public Order Act, because it's recently been in the news. That was one of the key areas of their campaign. Because the Public Order Act gives too much power to the Inspector General of Police, and the government, and I'm quoting, will repeal any provision in the Public Order Act which is not reasonable and justifiable in a democratic society, such as those which hinder peaceful procession to highlight public grievances, which is the minimum tool for exercising civil society oversight over the government's process. The coalition was then elected into office based on their manifesto promises. And as of last week, the government has launched the National Development Plan, which is the blueprint from 2018 to 2021 for the implementation of projects. The NDP has 3 components for accountability. And the one which is of interest to us is the mechanism for citizens to engage, communicate, and information, and assessing government's effectiveness. As per our constitution, citizens should be involved in monitoring what the government does because they are an elected body that represent the people. Therefore, civic engagement, civic awareness is very important. And under this, we all have a role to play in monitoring that the government implements their manifesto and their development plan as promised to the people. With that, I would like to hand over to Bintu.
Good morning. Next on the agenda, we have our project manager at the YMCA, Therese Mamkangu Keita, who's going to give a talk. Therese, can we please give her a round of applause? Good morning. The YMCA Computer Training Center and Digital Studio has come a long way since its inception in 1995. Thanks must be given to the British volunteer organization, BSO, who provided initial technical staff and 5 computers to start the center. The main purpose at the start of the center was to train youth, mainly girls, in the YMCA's Vocational Training Center on computer literacy proficiency and application softwares. However, with the Gambia's fast development in the ICT world, the center now offers courses, after-school programs for youth, covering all aspects of ICT on a full-time and part-time basis. For youth, children, and customized courses for employees of various organizations. The center continues to forge partnerships with numerous organizations to carry out advocacy programs on ICT, centering on content generation, use of online platforms for collaborative projects, and internet governance for development. The center also continues to champion ICT development in YMCAs within the West African region. The center carries out not only customized training, but is highly involved in research and various aspects of ICT development, covering the following areas: ICT for development, internet governance, communication as a catalyst for development, youth entrepreneurship and ICT, digital media for advocacy. At the present, The YMCA Computer Training Center and Digital Studio has become a leader in the Gambia in offering ICT classes, consultancies, research on ICT, and customized training. We also have a digital studio.
Thank you, Perez. Next, I'd like to call on BC. Well, that's what I call him. Okay, Mr. Babukar Sise, the project manager for the Barrow meter. Mr. Babukar.
Thank you, Rachel. Good morning, everyone, distinguished guests. My statement will be very short. I will just explain about the Barrow meter. Firstly, it's a platform where we seek to engage citizens based on their views, their opinions of the government. But what we will do, we will be tracking the government based on their promises. That's in the manifesto. Firstly, what we do is that we filter out the promises that are in the manifesto, and then with every promise we have a title, and then there's a definition of the promise and the narrative which explains the state of the promise. And this will be done every 3 months, so like we will have it will be a sort of a progress report, so as we'll be able to know exactly where the government is. But our main aim in setting up this barometer platform is not just to sensitize citizens on their rights or government promises and all that, but it's mainly to encourage these enfranchised youths and women to be actively engaged in politics. Because the Gambia, we know that in the Gambia here, the population is about 60% made up of youths. So this barometer is youth-driven. The average age of the barometer is about 25 to 26. So we intend to have community outreach programs, working with partners. We shall go up country and here in the urban area, but we feel up country is much more necessary because we all know the access to internet connectivity is all here and all that. The TV is all here. So we need to go there to get to the real grassroots, talk about the things that affect them. For instance, if the government had promised, say, the Ministry of Agriculture that it will provide 2,000 seedlings to farmers by the end of the season, the barometer would like to see to it that the government has provided it. And if the government did provide, like, say, 1,000 or 500, still the barometer will acknowledge it, but it will not mark it 100%, but maybe say 25 or so. But it will also like those citizens who the promise was made to know that this promise is there, and that you can tell the government, sir, you made this so and so promise to us, can you please deliver? Can you please tell us where you are at the state of implementation? So with that, and also, to also encourage like young children, like the kids going to school, to be actively engaged in politics or to have a political mindset for the future. We intend to have things like poetry, quizzes, and all that to be done in schools. But they will be concentrated on the topics from the manifesto. Everything is on the manifesto and the National Development Plan, which was released last week or sometime, a week before last, I think. Also, we have here our partner meters from the Maki meter and the Buhari meter. They will also share with us their experiences, the lessons they've learned. So we will be having a workshop with them tomorrow on the Paradise Suites on the theme accountability, transparency, and democracy, accountability, transparency, and good governance, a new democracy. Yeah. It will be very, very interactive, and I urge you all to please attend. You are highly, highly invited. As I said, I'll keep my statement short, but there's a question and answer session coming up. Please feel free to ask any question. Thank you.
This is Gambia. We're going to freestyle, and Mr. Daoud from the Maki meter in Senegal has agreed to speak in Wolof, and I'm sure a lot of people here understand Wolof. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Daouda Diaw from the Maki meter. It's the French spelling. Mr. Diaw is a computer science engineer who graduated from École Polytechnique de Dakar. He is currently the chief operating officer of IDEV Technology, an IDEV group subsidiary, which carries out business activities in Senegal since 1986. Mr. Diaw is a committed citizen with a dynamic social life. He created, in 2013, Makimeter.com, a platform with 3 of his fellow engineers. The main purpose of this platform is to follow and engage our leaders' pledges before coming to power. It also allows our nation to retain reliable appreciation for information to assess the real-time work of their leaders. So on that note, I would like to introduce Mr. Dauda Jao.
Morning, everybody. You know that I come from a French-speaking country, so I apologize to continue my speech in French or Wolof it's good? Ok. So, excusez-moi vraiment. J'aimerais beaucoup wax en anglais, mais pour que me gëna leer, c'est important que me wax ko ci langage bi nga xam ne moom laa gën a comprendre quoi. Donc pour dire que Macky Maître, bon déjà plaisir là am pour ñu partager expérience bi ñu am au niveau du Macky Maître au Sénégal. Je pense que s'il y avait bu amutoon Macky Maître tey xëy na duñu wax Barrow Maître, duñu wax Boiry Maître, duñu wax Faso Maître, Prési Maître, etc. Donc fierté la en tout cas pour ñun ñu gis ne idée bi ñu amoon bi ñu nekkee ay jeunes, on est encore jeune, mais bi ñu gënee doon ay jeunes, donc bi ñu amoon autour d'une table de déjeuner mi ngi continuer ba egsi fii nii quoi. Donc le Macky Maître bi ñu koy créé idée bi c'était juste que chaque fois entre collègues dañu daan waxtaan ci le bilan du président Abdoulaye Wade. Mais comme amuñu woon au départ Abdoulaye Wade lan la diggoon askan wi lan la diggoon peuple bi, donc ñu xalaat ne pour Macky Sall bu ñuy def bilan en 2017 ou 2019 ñu am par exemple benn outil boo xamante ni benn tools boo xamante ni dañ wax ne lii la diggee woon, donc lii ak lii la ci def, et est-ce que am nañ satisfaction wala est-ce que amuñ satisfaction. Donc c'est comme ça le Macky Maître bi judo lañ ko créé et sénégalais yi approprié ko, c'est pas comment dire, sénégalais yi def ko seen tools bopp, et ba léegi nii ça continue di def des émules ci yeneen pays Afrique yi, et donc entre-temps amélioré nañu outil bi bu baax a baax. Donc au-delà de juger Macky Sall, même les ministres, le gouvernement, population dañ leen di juger pour que ñu xool est-ce que ndax ñi ngi exécuter, ndax ñi ngi def bu baax politique du gouvernement. Aussi dañuy jox possibilité population bi pour que ñoom ñuy def ay contributions, maanaam di joxe seen opinion ci exécution, ci déroulement politique sénégalais bi. Bu ngeen xoolee Macky Sall bi ñu koy fal dafa diggoon sénégalais yi ci benn programme political programme bu tudd yoonu yokkute, et 2 years after mu bàyyi yoonu yokkute boobu def sa ko li ñuy wax plan Sénégal émergent PSE. Donc ñun on a ci li nga xam ne moom lañ ko falee woon ci lañ koy jugé, waaye ci li nga xam ne aussi changé na ko mu tuddee ko PSE dañ koy continuer juger. Donc Macky Maître bi tout programme lay follow en fait, pour que l'année prochaine 2019 février 2019 sénégalais am vraiment li ñuy wax élément d'appréciation fiable pour que ñu mën a wax ne ndax Macky Sall liggéey na wala ndax Macky Sall liggéeyu, ndax ministre yi def nañ la ñu waroon a def, ndax defuñ la ñu waroon def. Aussi dañuy jox possibilité mën nañ ko bañ a def bu baax, mën nañ ko def rapidement juste pour wax ni on a réalisé, vous voyez, et ça c'est important je pense ci point boobu que les populations aussi am seen mën a wax seen satisfaction ci réalisation bi nga xam ne le président Macky Sall def nañu ko. Bon, en perspective in the future am na yu bëri yoo xamante ne ni ñu ngi ko ci sóoraale pour que outil bi gën a fiable, gën a mën a joxe résultats yu concret. Et pour cela ñu ngi liggéey ak la société civile civil society du Sénégal, and la German, and la Japon, etc., Africa Tchèque, parce que si nous avons par exemple réalisé nañu lii, c'est important, it's important ñu dem ci area bi vérifier que effectivement c'est it's done, it's realistic, you know. Donc c'est ça un peu le programme. Moi je suis programme presque 6 derniers mois avant ñuy def élection présidentielle. Ndaxte dañu bëgg par exemple janvier 2019 next year, January next year, avant élection au Sénégal, que nous def bilan exhaustif de Macky Sall pour que Sénégalais ku nekk am de façon objective loo xamante ne di nga mën a juger vraiment le président Macky Sall. Donc comme défi aussi, comme challenge, dañu war a rester impartial parce que bi ñuy créé Macky Maître waa opposition dañ doon wax ne opposition Sénégal da doon wax ne c'est un outil, it's a tool of Macky Sall. Macky Sall aussi said it's a tool of opposition people, you know. So boo ko déggee di nga ne c'est important, mais en fait important wul noonu quoi, parce que ñun li ñu bëggoon mooy que ñu xam ne tools la boo xamante ne nii féetewul fii féetewul fële dañ koo def pas seulement pour Macky Sall, ndaxte bu fi Macky Sall jógee aussi after Macky Sall Macky Maître stay, you know.
Okay, we're saying with the mix of English and French and Wolof. I think my French has improved. Next we have Mr. Youssef Samsidine Adio. He is the Senior Programs Officer at the Center for Democracy and Development, which is a regional research advocacy and training non-governmental organization for West Africa, which is located in Abuja, Nigeria.
First, thank YMC for inviting us to be part of this important event, because it is quite important, because we need to start holding our leaders accountable politically. And you know, promise tracking initiative is now becoming global. Global in the sense that you go to the United States of America during the time of Obama, there was Obama. Even during the period of Trump, there is a metering, I think it's New York Times that is handling that. And the barometer was actually done by PolitiFact. You go to Nigeria, there's barometer, Senegal, Makimeter. You go to Zambia, you see, I forgot to, Lungumeter. You come to Gambia now, barometer, Burkina Faso, Persimeter. Everywhere you go, even Promise Tracker in Brazil, and so on and so forth. And you know, one of the critical things that a lot of people ask, even when we started this initiative, Barometer, was why do you need to track governments? Using promises, content of the manifestos as the basis of evaluating their performance. And that, is it legal or illegal? If it is not legal, you can't make it mandatory on the part of the government to fulfill those campaign promises. But my response has been very quite short. I often tell them that if we are still struggling with electoral democracy, at the center of electoral democracy is the kind of electoral choice that individuals, voters make. And what influences that electoral choice is very fundamental in deepening democracy in the country. So if you promise me to build 4,500 kilometer roads, and because of that, I cast my vote for you on election day, and you come back to renege on that promise, so it is not good for democracy. So not until we wake up from a slumber and start talking about, you promised this influence or changed my thinking about who to vote for on election day. And after that, I started putting in place tracking mechanisms to track your performance against those promises. That is when we start thinking about deepening democracies in Africa. And another important point with regards to that is the issue of are politicians ready for governance? And not only governance, good governance. I'm talking about democratic governance. I was reading something this morning about Nigeria when the former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria was talking about leaving the political space for the technocrats. That the politicians, for several years that they've been governing us, they are not making headway. But our position as CDD has actually been that for any politicians to be ready for governance, not only putting in place manifestos, but also putting in place strategic implementation plan to implement those agenda espoused in manifestos. And that will, for example, wouldn't have to take up to a year for President Barrow to release the National Development Plan, Action Plan. That would have been documented even prior to him being inaugurated into power. That wouldn't take the Nigerian government up to almost 2 years in government before, shorting out policies for agricultural intervention and so on and so forth. Because I think there is often a connection between the content of manifestos and policy agenda of the government, because policy and programs drive the implementation of agenda espoused in different manifestos. So CDD is actually happy to be here. It's like a dream come true, because when we started Buhari and also started discussion with Omaki, we organized a conference in Cotonou, bringing on board the project officers of Promise Tracking Initiative across West Africa to talk about how can we create a hub and also expand the scope of engaging government on Promise Tracking Initiative. So we are very happy that even after the meeting, Lahidi was launched in Guinea. We have Palomita in Benin Republic, and we had Presimita in Burkina Faso, and now we are having Barrow meeting. I was having a discussion with Bobaka yesterday, and I said, as much as we need to dwell more on communicating this, creating awareness about what the promises are and what we're doing, what is also very fundamental is for us to ensure credibility of our analysis. The output of our engagement needs to be very credible so that it also helps us to define content for engaging citizens on the issues around promise tracking and performance of the administration. I want to say we are all partners in progress. We all make Barometer a success. Without all of us here today, without civil society, other civil society actors, without the media, without the government officials, making resources, making data accessible to the team of Barometer, nothing will be done. So I would like to say that we are all partners in progress. Thank you.
Next, we have Mrs. Margaret Keita from Change Agents. Change Agents The Gambia is, their mission is to work as agents of change and cause greater and more informed participation from the citizenry of the country in civic matters and in promoting democracy and youth development. Mrs. Keita will tell us more about the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Margaret Keita. I am the founder and ED of Change Agents, and I would wish to acknowledge the presence of the chairperson of my board, Mr. Philip Sen, who's sitting back there. I started work in the civil service right from high school. I studied and obtained my qualifications whilst in the civil service. I became the Assistant Accountant General in 1992 and was the Accountant General designate by 1994. By 1993. After the coup, I had a stint at the National Investment Promotion Authority as the Deputy Chief Executive and Financial Controller. I became the Accountant General of the Gambia in 1996 I retired from that post in December 2004 and was appointed Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs in early 2005. I worked in that capacity for about 4 months. I have been a member of 2 commissions of inquiry. The Commission of Inquiry for the National Investment Board and the Commission of Inquiry investigating customs officials. I founded Change Agents in 2017 because a lot of things had happened and a group of us felt that we should not stay quiet anymore, but we should actively participate in civic education. It is an honor to be here today to speak on the theme, accountability, transparency and good governance, a new democracy. The Barometer program and other actions of civil society, mostly spearheaded by the youth, show the Gambia's determination to never again bear the shackles of dictatorship or oppression imposed by politicians and people in authority. We are resolved to live in a state of true democracy. This was demonstrated at that watershed moment when we stood up and cast our ballots to remove a dictator. With those votes, we purchased our freedom and snatched our country back. We will not let it go again. The Barometer program brings accountability to life in a very special way. Our country is a constitutional democracy. It does not belong to the president alone. Neither does it belong to the president more than it belongs to all of us. A constitutional democracy, as very aptly put by a very wise man, is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Citizens own the country equally and in common. As we cannot all lead, we decide who to employ to do the job of leading our other employees in order to achieve our goals. We make this decision by casting ballots to see who the majority wants to hire for this leadership job. It is a paid job, and payment, as for all other jobs in the public service, is made from the hard-earned cash of citizens and other residents collected through taxes, licenses, and other fees. Every person, young or old, employed or unemployed, pays taxes, as businesses pass on the taxes, fees, and licenses they pay to us by factoring them in the price we pay for goods and services. Government is run with our tax payments and loans taken in our name, which we have to pay for, and as grants given by others for the benefit of us all. The Constitution, the principal law of the land, and other laws, as all regulations, as well as regulations and policies, clearly state the job of each public employee, as well as the authority and power each employee has, beginning with the President and Head of State. This regulatory framework also provides for our representation in the form of National Assembly members we elect and pay to watch over the activities of government. Excuse me. This regulatory framework also provides for our representation in the form of National Assembly members we elect and pay to watch over the activities of government, to ensure that government acts in accordance with the laws and in our best interest. The job of serving the public is an honorable one, if done in accordance with the laws and with integrity. It is important for us to remember that these are jobs that require certain expertise, skills, and knowledge. 2, 3, or 4 people cannot be leaders on an equal footing. That will be chaos. One person must lead, and that person has to provide the vision, leadership, and direction. So you must have the strength of purpose, character, knowledge, and expertise required. When we elect leaders, we must bear this in mind. These are jobs, all of which require a certain level of knowledge and expertise, as well as energy, and a lot of integrity, as these jobs are held in trust. Transparency and accountability. As we have established that we as a people have decided to live together, owning the land equally and in common, and putting our resources together in a common fund for our protection, well-being, education, prosperity, happiness, and that of generations to come. For that is democracy. How do we ensure that our leaders carry out their functions as expected and in the best interest of the citizens?
Is what we learned in physics. This is Barrow meter. His name is Adama Barrow. So this is Barrow meter. You have to keep bringing that in your minds, lest we keep saying Barrow meter. And also to sincerely commend this great team for their invaluable contribution to national development by coming up with this timely intervention. The launch of this online platform today comes at a time that civil society in the Gambia is evolving to engage more with government to ensure that good governance is not only a slogan, but a manifested reality in our day. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our nation today stands at a crossroad. We have peacefully witnessed a change of leadership a little over a year ago, a change long desired, but one that seemed elusive. As a people, we have been called docile, inactive, scared, and all sorts of names that would describe our tolerance for a leadership that was dictatorial for the bulk of its time at the helm of affairs in this nation. What people failed to realize was that peace was encoded in our cultural DNA at conception as a nation. And that peace we nurtured to become our reality, seeing us through an unprecedented, peaceful transition. Seeing we are coming from a battered past during which our rights were grossly abused and we were given a bad deal by people we elected into office, recognizing that as a people we failed to take care of ourselves and protect our fundamental rights by standing and speaking out against tyranny, decided for the establishment of a truly democratic state, not only epitomized by voting for political leadership on election day, but rather one in which there are functional democratic institutions tested and proven. Further deciding that never again will we ever allow ourselves to be dragged back to those dark days of silently cowering in the fear of being imprisoned, tortured, or disappearing unceremoniously. And now making up our minds to put the past behind us and chart a bright future for ourselves and prosperity and posterity. We today have a tool that all and sundry will be able to use to facilitate our upward movement as a nation by holding our politicians accountable. Politicians that we gave a mandate to lead us into the green pastures of prosperity, to prepare ourselves with facts that will determine if they deserve to be voted into office for a second time. This tool is not all about us. They in government can utilize it to see how well or how badly they are doing insofar as delivery on their campaign promises and the goals of the National Development Plan are concerned. We all remember the campaign promises of the Barrow-led coalition government. How many of us have it handy and can use it to do a follow-up to see if our politicians are true to their words? I wonder how many of us in this place remember the slogan, accountability, transparency, and probity. We in Gambia today have a rude awakening by the revelations of the Janneh Commission and indeed our experiences with the former regime show us for a fact that political leaders cannot be readily trusted to carry their promises through. I hear someone amongst you say, how can you judge this current administration because of the deeds or misdeeds of the past? I hear you loud and clear. But let's take an example from the coalition manifesto. Let us remember that these political geniuses carefully crafted this document called a manifesto, hopefully with legal advice on the provisions of this document, with full knowledge of the constitutional provision of a 5-year mandate for the presidency. They agreed and decided, whether they signed or not, campaigned on this promise of a transitional government with a 3-year mandate. Today, yes, today, they are shifting and being dodgy when questioned, saying Gambians will decide. Others having the audacity to threaten us to see who will ask His Excellency Barrow to violate the Constitution and step down. No one is asking for a violation of our Constitution. No one is even forcing the President to step down after 3 years. All we are saying is be honest with us. If you met as a coalition and decided on 3 years, fully knowing what the Constitution says, you cannot use the Constitution, the constitutional argument on us. Go back to the drawing board as a coalition and make a decision and communicate to us your decision. Gambians cannot decide unless Gambians cannot decide on that unless you are planning a referendum. And coalition members, let me be first to warn you that if this provision is violated, there is no stepping down after the first term. They campaigned in the hope that they will convince the Gambian voters to reject undemocratic values and practices and embrace democracy. By Gambians deciding for change, we decided to give this government a chance, believing they will lead us into true democracy. The failure to adhere to promises made during campaigns is the first step towards misleading the people who gave you the legitimacy to lead them. So remember that we as Gambians have decided once, and we will decide again. The barometer as an online platform will allow citizens to be informed on yearly budget allocations, national development plan goals, and how the allocated budget is spent, and how budgetary allocations support such plans or otherwise. It shall question the measures put in place to disallow misuse of public funds and ensure that funds allocated are used for what they are meant. It shall also highlight all the promises made by the coalition government, as you have heard the project manager mention, and shall outline all targets met so as to serve as a performance monitor that will give statistical detail on government execution. The online platform, I am reliably informed, shall incorporate all social media tools and a mobile application developed that can be downloaded on your smartphones. May I pause to advise that you begin to delete all your unnecessary materials in your smartphones and get ready to download this application. The barometer about to be launched today will give every citizen an opportunity to be a teacher with your scorecard to grade the performance of this unique student in the political classroom.
Now I'll show you what we built. So looking at that, that's the website. There's a site and an app. That's the site part. So as you can see, the front page contains information relating to current events. When you scroll down a little, you see that we have a news feed at the bottom. And that will be dynamically updated based on reports brought in by journalists that were hired on the project. Okay, so that will always be the latest news on current events in the Gambia. That was the informational part of the front page. Now we move on to the promises page. The promises page is in many ways the heart of the project. As you can see, if you scroll down a little, there's a big pie chart at the top. And that's the total of all promises that have been made by this government. And in red, you can see what's been done, and in blue, you can see what's not being done. So since they just got started, I think we can give them some leeway. But when you look down at the bottom, there's a list of categories into which promises are divided. And you can click to go into one of the categories. For example, amnesty, detention, and custody. And you'll see that there's a bunch of promises made by the government there. And you'll also see that there's a legend for those that are complete and those that are incomplete. And when you scroll back up, the pie chart has changed for this particular category. So what that lets you do is to look at overall what's being achieved, but to also go into areas of interest and figure out exactly what's being done.
Male, and they would say behind every man there is a strong woman. So they make them their wives, to love and to hold in sickness and in health till death do they apart. Forgetting that the women are their backbones, the women of color, the mothers of generations to come, and they are in love with their nation, with me, their continent, and not with the power they are denied. And I am so much in love with them too. So do not pretend that you too love me. Love me enough to protect me. Love me enough to not break me, because I am tired. I am exhausted. I am frustrated. I am tired of your ways and your portrayal of what power is and not what it ought to be. So to make me great again, you should give them a chance. And I promise, I will be happy with you.
Comments, anything basically. If you want to say anything, just show by hand and we'll pass you the mic.
Thank you very much. One, I think it was the presenter from Senegal. It was French speaking and tried very well to speak in Wolof. I'm encouraging him. When you have a meter and both parties, that is the government and the opposition, they are accusing each other, saying that the government is saying, for instance, your meter is in favor of the opposition. It is innovation from the opposition. Similarly, the opposition claiming that your meter is in favor of the government. When you have that situation, be convinced that you are on the right track. You are neutral. You are favoring nobody. And then I will comment on our current leadership. You see, we suffered a lot in this continent from period of slavery up till now. I no longer comment on slavery. This is history. We know all the negative parts of slavery. Let's leave that topic for the schools to educate the children. But for us, the adults here, we take it from our first forefathers like Nkrumah, like Jomo Kenyatta, like Lumumba. They had great initiative. They had a clear vision to save the continent from poverty, to develop the continent. But unfortunately, the subsequent leaders, and I will be more specific for Gambia, the First Republic and the Second Republic, they failed us. They derailed us from the vision of our forefathers. Now we are entering a third republic. We should be much more conscious. And this barometer is going to enhance the efforts of all these NGOs who are now conscious, embarking on civic education. We want to know exactly how well this government is doing. Whether they accept it or not, a tool is necessary. In any subject you have, any project, you must implement and have time for assessment, evaluation. This is what this tool is doing. My background is science. I use a lot of tools. Despite my 30 years of experience, if I enter a room, despite the fact that I can tell, because of my experience, I can tell whether the lighting system is sufficient or insufficient, I still use a meter. I use a light meter to determine it. If I have water or food in front of me, my taste of smell and sight can tell me whether it is good or bad. Yet I rely on a meter to test exactly how bad it is and what makes it bad. If I go see a patient, I have already questioned the patient, assessed him, did my physical examination, and I suspect, I call it suspect, that a certain illness is affecting this patient. I go to the laboratory. I use that tool to give me the confidence I'm doing the right thing. So this meter, this barometer, is an essential tool, and it has arrived at the appropriate time, and all NGOs will utilize it. I will only urge this organization, this barometer handlers, to make sure that in assessing the performance of government in various projects, they need to utilize expertise knowledge. You have enough Gambian experts in any field here who are not related with government and who have adequate experience to help assist you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'll cover the first question, which is a very important one, about what if people from the opposition look at stuff that we have created and say it's not fair or it's geared towards the government or vice versa. So that's always going to be a problem online, just because of the nature of stuff that you post online. But though it's not an unsolved problem. It's a difficult one, but it's not unsolvable. For example, if you look at a place like Wikipedia, which is an online encyclopedia, they always try to have an unbiased view of everything. And one of the ways they do that is by insisting on primary sources. So no one can just make up anything and put it down. Now, you didn't see that in the project, but that's one of the things we also have here. So each of the premises that you see is actually sourced and comes directly from the party that made it. So that way we know that it came from the Hasna and we can keep track of it, and we know that they said it. Now, you're always going to have, the opposition are going to take the data and use it to their own advantage, and the government would also do the same thing. But that's fine, that's just how politics works. As long as we at the center we make sure that we remain unbiased, that everything is vetted before it gets into the database. That's the first thing.
Neutrality question. I was telling Waka yesterday, anybody doing accountability work, particularly when it comes to promise tracking initiative, we are mostly in between. We either belong to this side or this side, because what defines the side that people perceive you to belong to is the kind of information you give out. For example, if you release a report that is damning on the government will come out to attack you. Like last year, in 2017, February precisely, when we released one of our reports, government released a press statement with the headline, CDD, Stop Misleading Nigerians. And that was widely reported in all media platforms in the country. Just imagine, a country that has more than 10 TV stations and more than 20 newspapers. And this statement was reported by the newspaper. And we have to write a rejoinder, stating clearly the source of our information, how we arrive at what we do, and also emphasize the importance of having access to information. I think if one is very clear on some of these things, and the credibility of how you get your information is clear, definitely there is always government will attack you. But on the other hand, if you say government has performed, like the last report we released July last year, we stated that government has achieved, I think, 7 promises. And one of the key promises we said government has achieved was the release, because one of the promises was we shall present national strategy against corruption. And the national strategy against corruption, the development has actually started before this administration. But this administration took it up, very proactive, and ensured that it was presented and uploaded on the Ministry of Justice website. Because a lot of people do not have access to that information, and some who have access to that information see that as something that started before this administration, attacked us. That why would you say government has released this report? We can't find it anywhere. We have to now start directing them, giving them the link to when it was uploaded on the Ministry of Justice, which was February last year. And we released the report in July. And a lot of Nigerians were not aware of this information. And we take that as a change. For some said, look, it is not this government who started it. But we told them that, look, governance is a continuum. If this administration decided to stall the process, definitely they can do that. So we also need to acknowledge their effort in ensuring that these documents is released. So definitely you, as a civil society actors who is doing political accountability work, you are often not in between different actors who share different divergent opinions about what governance means. So, but what I see as something critical is for you to ensure that your source of information and analysis is very credible, so that you'll be able to defend yourself. On the second issue you raised about repositioning governance, using this promise tracking initiative to reposition governance, I totally agree with you, sir. And some of the things that we're looking at emphasize our campaign at the moment, like we'll be commencing a conversation around campaign promises in the lead up to 2019 election in Nigeria. And our emphasis will go beyond what do you have in your manifesto, what do you want to do, but the question of how do you want to do it. Because it's not enough for development to ask what do you want to do, but the question of how do you want to do it. Because I can say I will build all the roads in the Gambia, but I have no clue about how to get that done. One, what is critical to that is how can I increase my idea if public resources is a big challenge. How do I do that? How do I engage private sectors, collaborating with them to ensure that these are done properly? And that's why we are now campaigning. Our campaign now is more like you need to put in place your implementation strategies that will define how you want to get some of the things espoused in your manifesto done. So I totally agree with you. It is meant to reposition governance, and you need to get it right. Thank you.
Reshna. I'm working for the United Nations Development Program. I'm very much looking forward to see the barometer implemented. I have a question to the barometer team. So I understand the barometer is based on the promises made in the communiqué, and I was wondering what the plans are, including the National Development Plan that was just launched last week. Thank you very much.
What we intend to do is to filter them the NDP as the same way we filtered the manifesto, get the promises out, and link them with the ones in the manifesto. If they are the same, then we know that we have a duplicate. If it's not the same, we add the new ones on the new categories and then the ones. Because the NDP also contains new promises that were not made in the manifesto. That answers your question.
For any serious government, you must prioritize your intervention. So if you tell me you want to solve all the problems, it's not my problem because the manifesto is not written by me, then we will use that as a basis of assessing your performance. But if you are wise enough, you will constructively identify areas that you can address. Quick wins intervention within the 4 years and those things that are realistic and doable. And we can form our analysis for assessing performance on that basis. So, one of the key things that we are also talking about is, if in the long run they realize that they can't get all this achieved, they can then come back to say, okay, for me to address economic problem, do I need to make 1 or 2 in the next 3 years, make investment in power sector, make investment in education and stuff, and with this, is enough for me to revive the economy. So if that is enough, limit your promises to those sectors and specify how you will do it and get it done within 3-4 years.
Last week, the NDP was launched by government, which is the strategic plan for their interventions for the next 4 years. And you can get a copy of this document. It's a public document. I'm sure they should have uploaded it by now. And in that strategic document, they have their timelines set out. So you can see what their intervention areas are by sector, in their critical areas and their priority areas, and also the timelines within which they choose to implement these different things.
I have a question on the scorecard. Basically, I know it covers what is promised in the manifesto, but we all know how most of our governments function. A lot of things come on an ad hoc basis. Is there, does it also capture anything outside the framework of the manifesto which is achieved? For instance, they've made promises on energy, like was mentioned earlier, on how many, on how much power will be improved in the next 3-4 years. But what if there's an additional benefit of green energy, which wasn't part of the manifesto, but also does well for the environment, cuts across sectors? Is there a system within the scorecard that adds certain points for something which is done outside the manifesto but is quite beneficial to the society?
Good afternoon, everybody. I have a question for the Makinita team, if I may. Can I go ahead? Yeah, all right. Makibet, j'avais une question pour vous. Hier, j'ai essayé de voir votre site web et en entrant, j'ai vu que je ne peux pas faire des commentaires, je ne peux pas réagir, sauf que je m'inscris. Donc, je voulais demander, c'est quoi la raison spécifique pour faire ça? Et aussi, si vous ne voyez pas que ça va diminuer le numéro de commentaires que vous envoyez sur le site web. Car c'est un truc politique, donc des fois, surtout en Afrique, les gens ont peur de faire des commentaires s'ils doivent s'inscrire. Merci.
Yeah, so for your question, so what happens with that is, for example, for instance, the new alternative energy generation will just be added as a new product. Yeah, and then it will just be marked off as fulfilled. And it works that way too when you have, because in some cases you have a government that's in power for like 5 years, but they need a plan that's going to last 10 years that they're going to hand over to the next government. So that sense of long-term planning is also included in the system, so we can keep upgrading it. So maybe our government is removed, some of their promises are left hanging, but they have done the groundwork for the next government to then come and adopt those practices. So that's how this is.
Okay, thank you for your question. Je crois que c'est une question qui vient souvent, en tout cas sur le mathémètre. Il faut dire qu'au niveau du mathémètre, généralement, ce qui nous intéresse, c'est surtout la qualité des débats, quality of debates. Et pour cela, on dit que quand une personne est prête à donner une opinion vraiment constructive, il n'aura pas de soucis, il ne verra pas l'inscription comme un frein, comme un obstacle en fait. Et au Sénégal, bon, tout le monde sait qu'il y a beaucoup de sites hyper pollués par des commentaires parfois malsains, par des commentaires parfois qui n'ont rien à voir avec les sujets d'actualité, le sujet de l'article par exemple. Bon, pour éviter cela, nous on a dit il vaut mieux bâtir une communauté, par exemple de 1000 contributeurs positifs, constructifs, que d'avoir 100 000 Sénégalais qui insultent à longueur de journée et qui ne nous permettent pas. On a un outil d'extraction des données pour en tirer la quintessence de l'information utile en fait. Donc demain quand on fera cela, on sait que c'est sur la base d'informations utiles, sur la base d'informations constructives, sur la base d'informations bâties sur des arguments solides, scientifiques, qui permettront en tout cas aux mathématiques de jouer le rôle que nous voulons qu'ils jouent en fait. C'est-à-dire être un outil à partir duquel que ce soit les pouvoirs publics, que ce soit l'opposition, que ce soit les Sénégalais de façon générale puissent tirer des informations, des leçons importantes pour le développement de notre pays. En fait, c'est un peu ça. C'est vrai que c'est assez contraignant, mais comme je dis, hein, on préfère plus miser sur la qualité que sur la quantité en fait. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I first want to thank our two hosts, Penda Jibril and Bintu Marikuti, for hosting this launching ceremony on behalf of the Gambian YMCA. The YMCA has been involved in development and changing lives of people since 1844. There is no organization older than the YMCA in terms of changing the lives of people. Sorry, we're in over 109 countries globally, and we have existed in the Gambia since 1979 from our small beginnings at Banjul, where until we moved to our permanent site in Kanifing. And we will continue doing what we're doing within the YMCA spirit in terms of body, mind, and empowerment of young people. And one of our core programs we planned to do with this new dispensation is to try to use technology to document whatever happens. And this is the beginning of one of the things we are doing, and that is why we have this Barometer initiative. I would like to thank the Open Society of West Africa who have supported this project, and we have been in discussions with them since April about implementing this project, and for them to support us to bring our partners who were also supported by OSIWA, the Makimeter and Buhari Meter, our colleagues. Tomorrow we'll have a meetup session, so you're all invited. If you need any further clarification of it, you can talk to Babu Kasisi, our project manager for the Barometer. It will be taking place at Paradise Youth. It's a whole day session from 9 to 4 p.m. In that place too, you also meet our outreach partners, Gomza Bopa. They will also be there, and they will be responsible to be doing outreach in terms of what we'll be doing in the Barometer. I also like to use this opportunity to say one of the new projects we'll be launching with technology too will be digitizing everything that takes place during the transitional, the TRC, that's our Truth and Reconciliation process in the Gambia. So we also have a web portal. We don't want the experience that happened in South Africa, that things were not properly digitized. And we'll be working with Search for Common Grounds, the country representative for Liberia who initiated all this project, Mr. Aaron Weir. He's here during coffee break. You can talk to him. Aaron, please, can you identify yourself? Thank you very much, Aaron. So those are some of the things we'll be doing. So just expect much from us in terms of digitization. And I assure you that
my team will do the best they can to take into all perspectives what will be going on within this new government and within the National Development Plan, which citizen engagement is a key aspect of it. So on behalf of the Gambian YMCA, I thank you all for coming, and we can talk more during the coffee break. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you join my team tomorrow at the Paradise Youth Forum, 9 a.m. for the meetup session. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
So thank you very much, Juan. We now come to the end of the program.